My gay ex-boyfriend still loves me and arrested me with my new boyfriend. You just had to be a stereotype, right, Dad? I was fuming as the girl, just a few years older than me, sat there smug, telling us she was pregnant with my father's child. My mom was eerily calm. Our marriage fell apart ages ago. I'm leaving him. He betrayed you. Why are you defending him? I shouted. Stop being selfish, son. Not everything is about you, Mom said coldly. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Their divorce they had hid from me for months was now an all-out war. No one gave a shit how I felt about it all. I'm going to stay with a friend, I mumbled, grabbing my stuff. They just continued bickering over Dad's estate and his pregnant secretary as I walked out. Typical parents are so wrapped up in their own drama, they didn't even notice me leave. I started spending nights at this dingy bar, wallowing in self-pity over my parents' split. Ordering drink after drink, but nothing could numb the pain. That's when this guy Thomas slid onto the stool next to me. You look like you could use someone to talk to. I unburdened all my baggage about Mom and Dad onto him. When I finished venting, he nodded. I'm no therapist, but I've got something that might help take the edge off. He handed me a little white pill. What is it? I asked cautiously. Thomas shrugged. Try it and you'll see. I knew better than to take mystery drugs from strangers. But honestly, at that point, I didn't care about much of anything anymore. I popped the pill. That's when I experienced a feeling like no other before, pure, euphoric bliss. All my troubles just melted away. Thomas's face seemed to light up as we laughed and danced together. By morning, I had a new addiction beyond just drowning my misery in booze. I was hooked on the oblivion only Thomas could provide. That first night with Thomas set off a crazy downward spiral. We became inseparable partying buddies, constantly chasing that same level of mind-blowing highs. I've got the good stuff tonight, he'd mumble, pupils dilated before passing me another pile of pills or rolling up a fat one. I didn't even question what I was ingesting at that point. As long as it allowed me to block out my parents in their nuclear divorce, I didn't care. We'd stay up for days binging, then crash for a day or two wherever. His place, random motels, you name it. Rinse and repeat. You're my escape, baby, I'd slur, hardly able to form a coherent thought when I was off that cloud. Thomas would just grin dozily. You know I've always got you, babe. My job tried cracking down, threatening to fire me over constant no-shows and looking zombified. But I brushed off their threats. Getting supplied by my new favorite dealer boyfriend meant more to me than some paycheck. As long as we're together, who needs money, right, Tommy? I reasoned, nuzzling up to him. Before I knew it, everything outside our insular party world faded away completely. Got it? Here's beat 4, with the conversational first-person narration and dialogue picking up where the last one left off. Of course, the high couldn't last forever. One day at work, my boss called me into his office looking pissed. Don't play dumb with me, Levy. Someone caught you snorting coke in the bathroom last week. What? No way, I never... He cut me off, slamming the drug test results on the desk. You tested positive for cocaine. I'm well within my rights to fire you on the spot. I felt sick. The party was over. Please, sir, I'm going through some really personal stuff with my parents. Mr. Ridley wasn't having any of my excuses. You're a grown man, it's time you learn to deal with your emotions properly. Clean out your desk. I want you out of here in 30 minutes. I stormed out, ranting to anyone who would listen about how it was all so unfair. Deep down, I knew they were right to can me, but I was too busy lying to myself to admit the sad truth. When I finally made it back to Thomas's place, still fuming, I found him looking shaken, sitting on the couch with some shady tattooed guy. Who's this? I nodded towards the scary dude. Thomas chuckled nervously. Oh, just an old friend from out of town, babe. No one to worry about. With no job, I had no income to keep funding our party lifestyle. Thomas was pissed when I told him I got fired. I told you not to be so reckless. How are we supposed to get our stuff now? He seethed. See, I had been bankrolling our drug habit up until that point. Thomas claimed his job didn't pay much, so I covered the costs for his sketchy suppliers, like that tatted guy Pablo. Don't worry, baby, I've got enough saved to keep us going for a while. I lied, not wanting to face Thomas's wrath if I couldn't get him his fix. I started going behind my parents' backs, convincing them to give me loan cash for bogus emergencies, dodging their concerns about where the money was really going. You know I love you, right? Thomas was cool whenever I delivered a fresh re-up. We're gonna be just fine, babe. His sweet talking charmed me every time. I was addicted to his approval as much as the high itself, selling my soul little by little to keep him happy and arming our deadly addiction. I cut everyone else off, my folks, old friends, you name it. Tommy was my only fam now, whether they liked it or not. One night, Thomas and I were at this insane party he'd been hyping up for weeks. Everybody was tweaked out of their mind. Best shit in town tonight, babe, Thomas grinned, pressing some pills into my sweaty palm, straight from Pablo's private stash. I knocked them back without a second thought, pulling Thomas close as the rush hit. Before I knew it, we were in our own little world, making out fiercely, hands wandering. Suddenly, the door burst open. Police? Nobody moved. Thomas shot me a panicked look, then tried dashing for the bathroom. I moved to follow, but was instantly swarmed by cops. Levy? Oh man, what did you get yourself into? To my shock, one of the arresting officers yanked off his helmet, my old buddy Adrian from high school. He pulled me aside, confiscating the leftover drugs from my pocket. I owe you one from back in the day, so I'm cutting you a break, Adrian muttered under his breath. But you need to get your life together, man. I could only nod numbly as the cuffs clicked on. Adrian's disappointed glare burned worse than any hangover. In the chaos, I never saw where Thomas ran off to. As they dragged me to the squad car, I realized with a pit in my gut, he was just another prize junkie who used me. My dad bailed me out after that drug bust, but I could tell he was at his wit's end. Even worse, my mom showed up at the station, makeup smeared from crying. What has gotten into you? She kept asking through heaving sobs. This isn't my son. I just shrugged her off, too numb and dope sick to offer any excuses. Adrian's haunting disappointment stuck with me more than their judgment. A couple days later, Adrian showed up at my dad's place unannounced. We need to talk, Levy. I braced myself for another self-righteous lecture. But his tone was soft, caring, like how we used to be in high school. Is this about your parents' divorce? Because treating yourself this way isn't the answer, man. I broke down, spilling everything. The pills, the partying, my toxic relationship with Thomas and how he manipulated me. For the first time, I admitted what everyone else seemed to know. I had a serious addiction problem, one that had already destroyed my life. Thomas understood me in a way no one else did. I wept. He made the pain go away. Adrian gave me a somber look. By introducing dangerous addictions that damn near killed you. That's not love, that's abuse. His harsh truth exposed how distorted my thinking had become. I finally realized I needed serious help to break this vicious cycle. Will you help me? I pleaded. Adrian pulled me into an embrace. Of course, brother, that's what I'm here for. Thanks to Adrian's tough love, I agreed to check myself into rehab. Those first few weeks were hell on earth, battling the withdrawal. The cravings made me wish I could cease existing, anything to make that torturous aching stop. But my buddy refused to let me quit and return to the sweet, numbing oblivion of using. You're stronger than this, Levy. I know the real you is still in there, Adrian would say during his regular visits. Hearing his voice was often the only thing grounding me when I wanted to relapse. As the months slowly ticked by, I started uncovering the roots of why I fell so hard down that rabbit hole in the first place. Like my counselor observed, I don't think you were addicted to the drugs themselves. She was right. As messed up as it sounded, I missed the escapism Thomas provided more than the actual high. He had been my one constant during my family's implosion. Sounds like you were addicted to the person, not the substance, Adrian remarked when I told him. His understanding was invaluable. With his support, I began confronting the unresolved trauma that had sent me down such a perilous path. My parents' constant fighting and neglecting me, the abandonment issues I covered up by leaning heavily on toxic relationships. Slowly, I reclaimed my sense of self-worth that Thomas had carefully stripped away over time. Adrian helped me realize I was stronger than my addictions. After half a year of intense inpatient treatment, I finally walked out of rehab's doors a free man. Newly sober, damaged, but full of hope for rebuilding my life. My parents showed up tentatively for my release day, still awkward around each other. Adrian was there too, beaming with pride. You made it, brother. I knew you had it in you, he said, pulling me into a big hug. I forced an appreciative smile, but truthfully, I had never felt more alone. My family felt like strangers, and Thomas's ghost still haunted me despite getting clean. Found to stay diligent, found a stable job, got my own cheap apartment, started going to meetings. But I was just going through the motions. Adrian kept me from falling back into old habits. He'd show up uninvited with home-cooked meals or simply to hang out, reminding me of who I was before. "You can't run from your past forever, man," he said one night over beers. The Levy I knew was always a fighter. I sighed, running my hands through my hair. That Levy died a long time ago, Dry. I don't know who I am anymore without. I trailed off. Adrian squeezed my shoulder firmly. Then let's rediscover him together, one day at a time. I'm not going anywhere. His unwavering support was the sole reason I kept persevering through each struggle. I knew he believed in me, even when I didn't believe in myself. As the first year of sobriety crawled by, I slowly began piecing my life back together. Having Adrian by my side made that journey bearable. We retraced our high school years, grabbing food at old hangout spots, binging awful movies just to riff on them like we used to. Each idiotic inside joke helped me feel like my old self again. Adrian never pressed me for more, seeming to sense I wasn't ready. But the romantic tension was palpable between us at times. Like back when we dated secretly as confused teens. I wanted nothing more than to rip his clothes off and finally release years of bottled desires. But I knew jumping into something physical would only set me back. "Not yet, Adrian," I'd murmur regretfully when we found ourselves tangled up, breath intermingled. "I can't risk screwing this up." He'd simply nod, that damn understanding look on his face. "I'm not going anywhere, Lester. I've got your back no matter what." So with Adrian's patience and my commitment to meetings, I managed to hit 2 years sober, a milestone I never could have imagined back when I was deliriously binging 72-hour party marathons. Sure, I still got cravings. At times I missed the mind-numbing high, missed the bodily warmth of someone like Thomas wrapped around me. But those compulsions slowly faded with Adrian's tender presence in my life. I was finally ready to accept that I deserved real, unconditional love. The kind you couldn't just chase with a hit or a warm body. One night, buzzed on the thrill of making it to my 2-year sobriety birthday, I finally found the courage to make a move on Adrian. We were chilling at my place after a meeting, joking around like old times. In a sudden burst of boldness, I grabbed his face and kissed him hard. Adrian froze for a split second before melting into it, his calloused hands pulling me closer. Our kisses quickly grew heated, desperate, an outlet for years of repressed longing. Said Levy, he panted against my lips as I straddled his lap. "You sure about this?" "God, yes," I groaned, tugging his shirt over his head. "I need you, Adri. I'm finally ready." At that night, we shared our clothes along with a lifetime's worth of baggage between us. When we finally joined, body and soul, it felt like pieces clicking perfectly into place. Afterwards, we lay tangled in sweaty sheets, Adrian stroking my back soothingly. "I never stopped loving you, he murmured. "Even with all the bullshit." I nestled closer, amazed at the lightness I felt. Like a weight had dissolved off my shoulders. "I think I'm just now learning how to love the right way," I admitted. "Thanks for showing me." Adrian kissed my forehead tenderly. "It's my privilege, baby. We'll figure out this crazy life together." And just like that, I finally felt like I'd found my way home after being lost for so damn long. Of course, once Adrian and I went public with our relationship, not everyone was thrilled for us. His traditional Italian family immediately gave us major side-eye. "You're seriously dating that trouble kid you arrested years ago?" His older brother Paulie sneered during one extremely awkward Sunday dinner. "What? Couldn't find a nice, respectable girl?" Adrian squeezed my hand tightly under the table as his parents' faces tinted red. I could feel the shame and disappointment radiating off them. "We've been over this," Adrian replied through a clenched jaw. "Levy makes me happier than I've been in years. If you can't accept that, it's your problem." "Don't get an attitude with me," Paulie shot back. "I'm just trying to watch out for you before this fagel ruins your life." I flinched at the slur, but Adrian squeezed my hand again in reassurance. We ended up storming out of his parents' place before even touching the chicken parm. As we peeled out, Adrian glanced over with an apologetic look. "I'm so sorry you had to see that side of my family." He started, but I cut him off with a kiss. I knew what I was signing up for, being with the guy. I reminded him, "We're in this together, remember?" Adrian cracked a smile then, tension melting away. "You're my rock, Levster. I don't know what I'd do without you. No matter what shit his prejudice bloodline spouted, I could take it. As long as I had Adrian, the one person who had walked through hell and back with me, I knew our love could conquer anything. A few months after that disastrous dinner, I got a letter that dredged up memories I thought I had buried for good. "Who's it from?" Adrian asked as I stared at the scratchy handwriting on the envelope. "It's from Thomas," I said quietly, feeling a lump form in my throat. Adrian's jaw clenched, but he simply nodded for me to open it. Bracing myself, I unfolded the pages and started reading. "Levy, I don't expect you to forgive me, and you shouldn't. But I need to come clean about what a monster I was." The letter went on to detail the lies, manipulation, and toxic behavior Thomas had put me through for years. Things even I had blocked out. How he got me hooked on drugs as a way to control me. The time he set me up to get busted by Pablo's crew to avoid jail himself. "I'm getting help now," the letter continued, "but I'll never forgive myself for how I destroyed your life like that. You deserve so much better." Tears were streaming down my face by the end. All the repressed trauma came bubbling up, the sober me finally being forced to confront those horrific memories head on. Adrian pulled me into a fierce hug, letting me cry it out against his chest. When I finally caught my breath, he gave me a somber look. "You survived him, Lev. That's the important thing. You made it out stronger." I nodded, crumpling up the letter. "You're right. I don't need to keep dwelling on that dark shit anymore." Thanks to Adrian's love and support, I could finally exorcise the demons of my past once and for all. Thomas no longer had any hold over my new life. About a year after that closure with Thomas's letter, Adrian caught me off guard one night by dropping to one knee. "Brother, you're the strongest person I know," he started, voice thick with emotion. "You've overcome so much darkness and pain." I felt tears sting in my eyes as he fumbled with the ring box. "After everything we've been through together, I never imagined we'd make it here." "You're my light, my reason for living," Adrian continued. "So will you finally make an honest man out of me?" I let out a watery laugh, nodding furiously. "Yes, of course, dummy." Adrian slipped the simple gold band on my finger, then pulled me into a searing kiss. I clutched him desperately, overwhelmed by the love surrounding me. Our wedding day a few months later was a beautifully intimate affair, just our closest friends and the family members who stuck by us. No need for a big flashy production after so much drama. "I'm so proud of the man you've become," Adrian murmured as we swayed together for our first dance as husbands. Who knew that troubled junkie I arrested years ago had this in him all along? I playfully swatted his chest. "You never lost faith in me. That's the only reason I made it." As we continued revolving in our little bubble, I couldn't believe how my life had done a total 180. I went from being a lost, drug-addicted soul on a collision course with self-destruction. Now I stood as a respected member of society, sober, professionally stable, deliriously happy, and it was all because one man refused to give up on me when everyone else had. "I love you, Adri," I whispered fiercely. "Thank you for saving me." As Adrian and I relaxed on our honeymoon beach a few weeks later, I couldn't help but reflect on how far I'd come. From being that reckless, self-destructive addict willing to throw away everything, my career, family, self-worth, just to chase the high, all because I couldn't cope with my parents' nuclear divorce in a healthy way. "What you thinking about over there?" Adrian's voice snapped me from my reverie. He was watching me with that gentle, knowing gaze. I offered him a small smile, taking his hand in mine. "Just how grateful I am, babe, that you never stopped believing in me, even when I gave up on myself." He leaned over to kiss me tenderly. "I'll always believe in you, Levster. You're the strongest person I know." I felt tears pricking my eyes as I studied the ring glinting on his finger, proof of our beautifully imperfect journey together. "If you had told me 5 years ago that I'd make it this far, I would have called you crazy," I admitted hoarsely. "Getting clean, rebuilding my life from the ashes, marrying my soul's old mate. Well, I could see that inner fire in you, even when it was smothered," Adrian said simply. "I just fanned the flames until you found your path again." I squeezed his hand tightly, overwhelmed by emotion. Against all odds, I overcame the demons that nearly destroyed me, because this amazing man fought like hell to show me a better way. As we watched the sun sinking over the waves, I felt hopeful clarity wash over me. My life was just beginning, the endless possibilities stretched out before us. And no matter what storms rage, I knew Adrian and I could weather them together. Our bond was forged in fire, made unbreakable. I was home,